Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round of Bases Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, as you guys can see, I am in a different location yet again. I managed to bring my mic today, which is cool. The room sounds a bit more spatial than it did yesterday, but hopefully the sound is still good for you guys. And I've actually ordered a new mic which should be arriving tomorrow, so hopefully the sound quality of the videos will improve further. That being said, there's two cards that I want to speak about from this weekend, although one of them is technically the early days of next week, but you know how sort of those Japanese cards are. But there's actually a card on tonight. It's an OTX boxing card, overtime boxing, taking place in Atlanta. They used to have a DAZN broadcast deal last year. I'm not sure if this was going to be on DAZN. Hopefully it is, because there's two fights in there that I really want to have a look at. One of them is Elijah Pierce versus Jose San Martin. And if Jose San Martin sounds like a familiar name, he faced Shabazz Masood last year and lost a split decision in a fight where many people actually believed that he won. Shabazz was very, very lucky to get the decision in that. So San Martin has definitely got a little bit of cachet. He's also faced some other perennial contenders, people that you may have heard of or may not have in the past, but ultimately Elijah Pierce, he had a fight against Villanueva. I think it was toward earlier this year, and it was a fight. He was in trouble in that fight in the first 3 rounds. It almost looked like he was going to get stopped. 19-2, sort of very bright, young, vibrant fighter, but he was in all types of crisis until he managed to pull it out the bag in the 4th round. Stunning knockout victory over Villanueva. It was a very, very fun fight to watch. That one was on DAZN, so I remember that. So hopefully this one will be as well. But yeah, Elijah Pierce, real interesting character. I want to see that fight. Also, Brandon Adams is facing Francisco Veron, I think the guy's name is, or Juan Francisco Veron. Now that fight, interesting. Brandon Adams, look, perennial contender. He's never won anything. Lost to Jamel Charlo at super welterweight, but he does have a victory over Sergey Boyachuk, a knockout victory as well. When Boyachuk was about 18-0, so I mean, I guess that victory has aged quite well. But Brandon Adams, 35 at this point in time. He did have a knockout victory earlier on this year, but no telling exactly where his level is at the moment. Call me crazy, I don't know why specifically, but Francisco Veron, I believe, is 25, 26. This could be his moment. He's also got a decent knockout ratio, 10 knockouts, 14 wins, obviously 1 draw. Hasn't faced people to the level that Brandon Adams has, but is a lot fresher. Argentinian's gonna come forward to fight. Now that could play into Brandon Adams' hands. He could be given opportunities to counter in between punches, in between combinations, set up certain shots. I mean, the sensible money is on Brandon Adams to win the fight, probably via stoppage, if not a dominant UD. But something tells me to kind of go the other way and to put good money on the upset there. So that's something just to think about for you guys. But without further ado, let's get into the Matchroom boxing card that is taking place in Los Angeles. So heading into the Matchroom card, there is some fairly decent 50-50-ish type fights on there. I guess starting off with the women's bout, which is for the interim WBC World Super Flyweight Championship, and that's between Aleida Ruiz, who is 16-0-1, against Ginny Fuchs, who is 3-0. Ginny, I believe, is 3-0 with 1 stoppage, and I think Aleida Ruiz is 16-0-1 with 8 stoppages. So it's fair to say she's probably got the heavier hands of the two. Aleida Ruiz they're about the same age. Aleida's 35, I think Ginny Fuchs is also 34, 35, maybe 36. So yeah, they're pretty much same age range, both American nationals. Obviously, Jenny Fuchs was a very decorated amateur for the women's team in the States. Big friends with Michaela Mayer and what's her name? And Clarissa Shields, and the rest of that amateur team. So she's got the pedigree, but she just doesn't have the experience in terms of the pro game. Southpaw. This is Southpaw versus Orthodox. This is like pressure fighter versus what you would probably call pure boxer. Interesting matchup. Neither lady is actually signed by Matchroom or DAZN, so this is very much a showcase fight, and the potential is, if any of them win, they could maybe parlay that into a contract. The amateur experience goes to Jenny Fuchs, but the pro experience and the power goes to Aleida Ruiz. And on this particular, just due to the busyness of Ruiz, it's going to be a difficult fight for both. I do think this one is not a foregone conclusion either way, but I am going to lean towards Aleida Ruiz with just the more pro experience and the busier style to get this fight done, and to retain her interim Superfly WBC status. Eduardo Sugar Nunes is facing Miguel Mariaga on the card. Don't even really need to go into a big diatribe about this one. Sugar Nunes is going to win this via devastating KO, and I do believe it will probably take place within inside four rounds. That's my prediction. If it's a little later than that, the KO is inevitable, just like Thanos. That's how I look at that one. You've also got Chev Clark against Efe Tobo Opochi, who is a Nigerian cruiserweight. What's his record? It's 12-2, but his 2 losses have both been split decision losses. One of them was actually to Brandon Glanton, which, as Brandon carries on up his levels and up the ranks, looks a lot more impressive. He hasn't necessarily been in there with anyone of huge note, but he's never been outclassed in the fights that he has lost, which is very interesting. And while this is obviously an opportunity for Chev Clark to show up and show out, I'm not sure if he is going to be the first one to get the knockout. It's a possibility. I do think Chev Clark will win the fight, though. I think just the first few rounds are probably going to be a bit awkward for him to get his timing and rhythm, as Opochi is obviously very tough and is able to hang back, protect himself, and try to, he likes to counter punch, whereas Chev is very much on the front foot, forward and aggressive, and trying to throw combinations on the inside. I think Chev can get a stoppage, and I think he can get one late, but for now, just because of the toughness of Opochi that I have seen, I'm going to go for a decision victory, a unanimous decision victory. I don't think it's going to be a split decision. I do think Chev Clark will take this one unanimously, but it will be a hard-fought and contested fight. You've got super bantamweight 10 rounder between Arturo Opochi and Jesus Valdez, I think his name is. One is obviously 14-0-1, the other one is 21-1, so very evenly matched in terms of levels of progression where they are. Both guys are trying to secure themselves into a super bantamweight title fight or put themselves into contention. I'm gonna go with Popocha, to win the fight, just due to momentum. He's got a lot more momentum behind him. This is a fight where, to me, it will go either way. I can't really pick it outside of just looking at who's been on the better run as of recent. And I do think Popocha is on the ascendancy, whereas Valdez is kind of more towards, or he's on a bit of a turbulent trajectory at the moment, even though it's only one loss. But that's kind of my look at that. Now, going to the main event. Diego Pacheco versus Maciej Sulecki. Now, Sulecki is actually a pretty good opponent for people coming up in the ranks. I had issues when Jamal Charlo was supposed to be facing him at 160 for a title. but that's only because ultimately, you know, Zuletsky is a good guy as a measuring stick, but has never necessarily been the guy that you fight as the champion. I think the only person who probably got that distinction was Danny Jacobs, and that was several years back. But for someone like Diego Pacheco, who's on his way up in the rankings, I feel like this is sort of like the perfect kind of stomping ground for him to elevate, to move into world title contentions, moving up and final eliminators, etc, etc. Now, I do think this fight's going to be tricky. I mean, Zaleski is not the biggest of punchers, but he's very tough, very durable, and he knows how to survive rounds, navigate rounds, and in most cases even nick rounds. He's very good at being able to steal a round either in the last third, the last stanza, or being just competitive enough to make the judges have to have a decision. Now, with Pacheco being the main guy and the headliner and the A side, I suppose, on this event, things will kind of lean in his favor, but Sadetsky will have moments in there. I do, however, think that towards the end of this fight, it would be behooved of Pacheco to try and step on the gas to sort of break Zalesky's will at the end. It's hard to imagine him getting stopped because he hasn't been stopped yet, but he is, you know, many years older. He's fought once already this year, but he's been fighting sort of one fight a year since I think 2020. So, you know, how fresh is he? You know, what can he still take? Pacheco, I do think he's going to win this fight, and I do think he's going to win it fairly comfortably on the cards, even though having some tricky moments early on, but I can't see him getting a stoppage. He might. If he does, it's going to be late, but I'm going to go for a unanimous decision with Diego Pacheco. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that one. Leave yours down below, and yeah, let's move on to the Japan card taking place on Tuesday morning, our time. So Tuesday morning, we've got Naoya Inoue versus TJ Doheny for the undisputed. Is it actually? It's not undisputed, sorry. I don't think it's actually undisputed. I think it's only 3 belts on the line. IBF, WBC, and WB. No, it is undisputed. Yeah, no, it is the undisputed titles. I was trying to remember if they had put the WB on the line for this one. They have. But if you know anything about Japanese boxing and those sort of lower weight classes, this is actually a very, very stacked card. It's very stacked. So I want to go, there's 4 fights that I particularly want to speak about. The first one being Ishmael Barroso against Andy Hirioka. Now, this is going to be a war. Obviously, you've got Barroso, who I like to call Mumra, as a lot of you know, 25-4-2. Obviously, in his penultimate bout, just before he knocked out Ohara Davis in a round, he was brutally robbed of a stoppage. On a stoppage, I should say, to Rolly Romero, even though Rolly was throwing shots that weren't actually landing. Yeah, you know, we spoke about Tony Weeks and his performance and the blatant corruption that took place in that situation just to get a belt on Rolly Romero. Anyway, Andy Hirioka is 23-0 with 18 KOs. He is like one of the next up in Japan in that super lightweight division. He hasn't fought outside of Japan much, I don't believe. But I don't think he has at all, actually, come to think of it. But Barroso's going over there. As I said, this is going to be a war. Barroso's probably going to play this one on the back foot, look to counter punch, similar to what he did to with Ohara Davis. Hirioka's a lot more switched on. I would say he's a bigger puncher than Ohara Davis, a bit more explosive, not as gangly, does have some holes in the defense, but I think his power is a lot more something that Barroso is going to have to be worried and watch out for. I don't know which way this fight's going to go. This is literally a pick'em fight. I can't call it, I'm going to be real. But I don't sit on the fence, you know. Right or wrong, I won't sit on the fence on this one. I'm gonna actually go for. I'm gonna go with Ishmael Barroso to eke out a decision. I think he might even end up getting a stoppage. I feel like he's Has he fought the better level of competition? Overall, he has. He has been stopped on a couple of occasions, not including the last one, which was obviously fraudulent, but he has been stopped prior. I don't know, I'm struggling. I'm gonna go with, you know, no, I changed my mind. I'm gonna go with Hiroka, and I think I'm gonna go via stoppage, and I think it's gonna be a stoppage around round 10, rounds 9 to 10. But I'm going on nothing but vibes. Like, both of them are very evenly matched. I've seen what Barroso's done recently. This one's very hard for me to pick. So yeah, I've changed my mind. It was Barroso first. I'm going with I'm going to go with Hiroka. Yeah, stoppage victory around about sort of 9 or 10. You've got Jin Sasaki versus Camille Baila. Look, Sasaki is again an ascendancy. He's number 4 in the welterweight, in the world welterweight rankings, number 1 in Japan. Yeah, I think he's bounced back quite well from his TKO loss, to Andy Hiroka. So I think Sasaki is, that's pretty much a routine fight for him. I think he's going to win that one. Baia, I think, has been inactive for about a year and a bit, about a year and 3 months. So yeah, Sasaki, I think, to win that via stoppage within sort of 7 rounds. That's my prediction on that one. You've got Yoshiki Takai versus Diego Higa. Now this is a fight. This WBO World Bantamweight title on the line. Yoshiki Takai recently won the WBO title against Jason Maloney. Maloney was very upset about this, thought that he was robbed on the scorecards, but it was unanimous decision. I remember the fight. I think it was Takai's first 12 rounder ever. He'd only done 8 rounds before, and you could tell that sort of the pacing kind of got to him a bit. But now that he's got those 12 rounds under his belt, I think him versus Diego Higa is gonna be a fight that, is gonna be very, very fun to watch. Higa is also very, very powerful. 21 wins, 19 of them by KO, 2 losses, 1 of them by KO, 1 draw. So he comes to scrap. This is gonna be a very, very difficult fight for Yoshiki Takai. We saw, obviously, the knockout stopped when he stepped up all the way to world level. So 9-0 with 8 KOs. I do think if he fights similar to he did with Jason Maloney, he will win this fight on points. There's a very outside chance he could KO Higa, but I think if he tries to go in there and look for the knockout, he'll end up getting knocked out himself, or he'll get badly wobbled and be on survival street, similar to how he was at moments against Maloney. So my conservative prediction is Yoshiki Takai to just about eke out a points decision. Could potentially even be a split decision, but he's gonna have to be he's gonna have to be on his game, and he can't get reckless. He can't look for those power shots, especially early. If he does, he's got to accumulate the damage first and build that up into the power later on. But I am really, really looking forward to this fight on Tuesday. Next main event, look, it's Naoya Inoue, the monster, against TJ Doheny. Now Doheny is 26-4, has never been knocked out in his 4 losses. Very tough, very durable, but we know what Naoya Inoue does. And TJ Doheny, the one thing about him is he's not going to try and come and survive like Paul Butler or just sort of move around the ring. He's going to come and he's going to have a go. He's going to try to win this fight. That's one thing I will give Doheny. This is a lighter touch in terms of the run that Inoue has been on. I don't really have a problem with it. But yeah, in terms of it, I think this ends up being the first TJ Doheny stoppage defeat. I'm not going to go too much further into how it plays out, because I think you guys can kind of tell. Doheny, as good as he is not in the league of Inoue in any way, shape or form. The only advantage he has is being a naturally bigger guy, having campaigned at 122 much longer than Inoue has, but Inoue's power has traveled. We've seen it travel, even though obviously it was with guys that may have also moved up to the weight previously. That being said, he's fresh now, he's comfortable with the weight, he's in great shape, and yeah, I see Dehaney getting stopped inside. I think he's gonna give it a go, but I think he's probably 6 to 8 rounds, somewhere in between that region. I see this fight ending, and I see it probably ending more by accumulation stoppage, maybe ref jumping in as opposed to a stone cold knockout. But Dehaney will hit the canvas in this fight. I can see it happening. So yeah, that's my predictions, ladies and gentlemen. Leave yours down below. Let me know who you think wins all these fights over the weekend. More hopefully should be episodes dropping tomorrow. I am out for the entire day, but we will wait and see. Again, for everyone, apologies yesterday on the video. I know that the sound and the music didn't really gel well together, but hopefully this one's much better. Again, like I said, new mic coming, so like, subscribe and share. But for right now, this is Basis Picks, locked.